Hi, I'm David with EV World News, where we talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and Bill's criminal past. I'm
Yeah.
here today with uncaught felon Bill Moore. I'm pretty sure, Bill. I'm pretty sure that's beyond the statute of limitations.
Yeah, I was thinking it's probably beyond the statute of limitations. Just to bring everybody up to speed, we were talking about stupid things that kids do and later regret in life. And probably the worst thing I ever did was stood on top of a department store downtown in Omaha and dropped snowballs on pedestrians down on the sidewalk below. So.
Yeah. Well, anyways, yeah, that probably wasn't a crime back then. Nowadays, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays, anything, you look at somebody. I heard a complaint at a club that somebody complained that someone was looking inappropriately at someone else.
Oh.
That was a complaint to the management at a gym, was that somebody was looking inappropriately. It's like, well, what does inappropriate looking look like?
Ogling at a distance? Is that on the statute somewhere?
I don't know. Well, it actually is worse than this, because they were accusing this guy of looking at this girl, and he's gay and autistic.
He's gay and autistic. Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, well, get rid of your outrage.
Give the poor kid a break. Geez, 2 strikes against him. Well, maybe one strike. Yeah. Okay.
Well, anyways, yeah. So you just never know. I mean, you have so much outrage about different things. I mean, like the news wants to act like everybody's outraged about everything, and it's like, I'm concerned, but I'm not outraged. About a lot of things.
We've got some outrage we can talk about today.
Yeah. Well, let's start with good news.
Good news. Do good news. Absolutely.
Let's see. So Rivian posts a gross profit of $170 million for Q4. Now, gross profit is, your cost when you produce a vehicle, all your labor and expenses of the vehicle itself, versus what they sold it for, essentially. Right. So they actually sold vehicles at a gross profit. It's still wasn't enough to cover operations. They were still at a loss. Okay. Right. But this was, sort of good news. So it was the first time they reported a gross profit for the quarter. It was a smaller than expected full year 2004 EBITDA number, or a smaller loss, and sees a smaller loss in 2025 compared to a year ago. And despite the positive news, they fell 3% on Friday. So, anyways.
So is that kind of like what GM was reporting?
Yes. Yeah. Very similar type news that they're making a gross profit on electric vehicles now.
Right.
They just now need to sell more to make up. But a lot of that is because they're paying for the investment in the infrastructure to produce those vehicles. And if you don't count that, they're making money per vehicle.
Right.
Okay. So that it's still an improvement over where they were. Now that's Rivian doing better. So pretty much everything else we've got today, well, other than the GM story, is bad.
Well, yeah, but before we move on to Rivian, let's make mention of the fact that was it RJ has, or is it JR? I can never remember. RJ has announced that they are going to be introducing their own autonomous driving technology here in the near future. Now, what that is, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, whatever, right? But they're moving now into that area. And apparently Tesla has made some small gains or progress in getting theirs approved in China. So we're seeing those types of things starting to happen.
You'd think that of all the places where the self-driving would work the best, probably here in Omaha, where pretty much all of our roads run north, south, east, west. You really can't get lost here because eventually, you're gonna, the streets are all numbered. They don't change. When I lived in Memphis, you'd come to an intersection, and all four ways out of the stop sign, the road would have a different name. So all the roads would change names, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, what the hell?
Well,
Yeah, it's like
we have some of those like that here too, but yeah.
it'd be like taking one block of my street and changing it from the name of the street to this is David Neese Street for this block,
Right.
kind of thing. And, then you got Bill Moore Street, different part of Papillion, and just, kind of random. It's like everybody had to have their street, right?
That was
So,
that was honoring a baseball player or whatever. Now we've got a few of those here. We've got Mayor Fahey Street when we had Mayor Fahey, and there's a short
mhm.
stretch of a street downtown that's Mayor Fahey. The thing that always confuses me was the switching, that you've got one street that is a street, and then the next parallel one is an avenue, and
Okay,
then the
that
next
doesn't make
one is
any
a street.
sense.
That's
That
that's a little confusing. Yeah.
that is really confusing. That's Omaha for you. When I was in Memphis, I used to live on George Brett Drive, but it was in an apartment complex, and he owned it, or he was one of the
Oh,
owners of the complex. But
okay.
anyways, um, but yeah, so that's good news for Rivian. Rivian sees in 2025 they expect to deliver about 50,000 vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be a really big jump. Um, but they only expect quarter one to deliver 8,000, but produce 14. So to produce 14, 14, 14, 4, that'd be 42 plus 8. Yeah, that's 50.
Cool.
So they could
I'll say no.
realistically do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of exciting to see Rivian sort of getting there. And I'm assuming at some point they're going to be factoring the R2 in there, but it
Yeah,
doesn't make any mention.
I posted, what was it? I can't remember. I think it was about over the weekend. I posted something about Rivian and I think the R2 and when they expected that to start coming. But when you do a couple hundred stories every other few days, a little hard to keep track of them all.
No, I get it. I get it. Let's see. All right. So we had a great story we did about the Eviation Alice aircraft a couple of months ago, and
Yeah,
they're laying off staff and they paused development on the Alice electric aircraft. I don't know that they've actually filed bankruptcy.
it's a little confused as to exactly what's happened, but basically, um, that seems to be the direction that they're headed. Just catch everybody up. Eviation is a company that started off in Israel, and I back interviewed, I don't know, 5, 10 years or whatever it was, the CEO of the company, Omer, oh God, Ben Yohu or something, whatever it was. And pardon me if you're listening. Pardon me for blowing your name here, old man syndrome. But anyway, so I was surprised that next time I read about them, they're setting up operations well, actually, technically in Arlington, Washington, which basically was an old World War II naval training base associated in the just north of the greater Seattle area. And then they started doing flight operations and did their first flights out of Moses Lake, Washington, which is on the east side of the Cascades, and seemed to be doing well. Looks like they had some kind of deal with DHL because they had artwork. I don't know if the plane ever got painted that way, but artwork that showed, their beautiful, sleek, all electric aircraft. I think it was designed to haul something like 19 passengers or something, as a cargo plane flying for DHL. But then things got silent. I reached out to him on a couple of occasions, never heard back, which generally is not always a good sign. And now I read this weekend that they're laying off staff, and there's a suggestion, and I don't know if there's any basis to it or not, that the government of Saudi Arabia is trying to get their operations moved there. So I guess they want to get out of the Seattle area, which of course is big with Boeing aircraft, and of course Boeing's had its share of problems, and possibly moving it to Saudi Arabia. We know that they're already doing work in that part of the world, getting electric VTOL air taxis. I think in either Dubai or Abu Dhabi, one of the Emirates. So it looks like, and of course, we know that Saudi Arabia has a deal with Lucid, right? And they own a fair-sized chunk of Lucid. So is it a move on the part of, interestingly, an Israeli company?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because
Saudi Arabia. I don't know.
They have 600 pre-orders for their aircraft.
Yeah.
From, like you said, DHL, Air New Zealand, and Global X. And that, I'm sure in terms of aviation, those aircraft aren't cheap. I mean, that probably represents substantial revenue to sell 600 aircraft.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's sad to see that because, like I said, it did seem like something good that we'd see. But the CEO Andre Stein said they're ceasing operations, laying off staff to give it time to explore strategic opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sure, like you're saying, maybe they move it to another country. Who knows? It seems like a challenge to do that. And it was an aircraft. It's basically a 9-seater aircraft.
Oh,
with a top speed.
Okay.
Yeah, with a top speed of about 300 miles per hour, range of 250 miles, and it can stay airborne for 2 hours. Obviously,
beautiful airplane. I mean, it's just the epitome of aerodynamics. It's beautiful.
Yeah, just really sad to see that, but it was part of a dual thing because we also are going to talk about Lilium. Yeah. Lilium files for bankruptcy
again. Yeah, this is their second go at it. Yeah, they had declared I guess the German equivalent of a Chapter 11, and then they had got some promise, went into negotiation, got some promise of money from a different investor group or groups to bring the companies, resume research and development of the aircraft. And then this weekend, right along with Eviation, they are forced, apparently, whatever financing deal they had arranged never materialized, fell through.
Yeah, they had a Slovakian investor named Marian Bocek. It was slated to provide around 150 million euros, which is about 157 million US. That was the largest contribution to the planned $200 million or 200 million euro equity injection that would have given them the opportunity to restart assembly of the first prototypes, continue preparations for the first flight of the Lilium jet. But he was not able to come up with the money. Now, Bocek also owns battery manufacturer Inobat over in, I guess, in Slovakia. But yeah, so it's been unexplained why the bridge loan hasn't come through, but they sought prospectively a bridge loan financing, and they unsuccessfully been able to do it. They ceased operations on February 10th pending a solution. Well, it's really sad because we've had a few of them. I mean, these things take a lot of money to develop aircraft. No. And develop cars too. I mean, even cars are expensive, but
aircraft even more so. A car, if it breaks down, it just pulls off to the side of the road.
Yeah, but you know
An
what's
airplane
interesting?
that's an airplane that breaks down in the air, not a good thing.
Well, generally, what you see when you have a new technology, lots of people will jump into the space to be
Right.
early adopters. Most of them will fail and they'll
Yep.
consolidate. And we're seeing this in the EV space. We're already seeing this. We've
Yep.
lost Nikola, we've lost Lordstown, um, I'm Fisker. There's plenty of others.
Yeah, there's the British one that came over, had the van. What was that one? I can't remember the name of it now, but there was a British one that was developing a nice cargo van, kind of
Oh,
like
okay.
the, yeah, the same story. So,
Yeah, and of course we lost Canoe, but some of these, like Nikola, some of their entities got bought up by um, what was it? By Mullen, and I think part of no, wasn't Nikola. What was it? Proterra buses. They part of their company got
hmm
sold to that electric bus company out of Phoenix. I think it's called Phoenix Motors or something like that.
hmm
And you so what happens is in an industry as this goes along, you see all this consolidation, and it's unfortunate because it affects the lives of these people who are working at these facilities
yeah,
and are counting on it for jobs. But you see this consolidation, and then generally these other companies, because they pick up some technology, they pick up maybe some assets real cheap, it allows them hopefully to go on and be successful. But we'll see. But this in the aviation space, we're seeing the same thing. But it looks like Joby and Archer are gonna probably dominate that space.
yeah. And it's not. I mean, we see the problem that Boeing is having serious problems, and that was a stalwart, right, of
Hmm.
the of American technological innovation, particularly in the aerospace area, and they're seriously being challenged. Airbus is giving them a run for the money, and now the Chinese are working and getting closer with a sort of a wide body. Well, no, I'd probably class it more of a narrow body twin. But even the Chinese economy is struggling right now. So it's if I were an investor, I'd be hard pressed to figure out where am I going to put my money because
Yeah, well,
there's
look at how much money Warren Buffett sent. It's something like 350 billion in
Mhm.
cash. It's unbelievable to think that somewhere in Omaha there's 350 billion cash stuffed in a mattress somewhere.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
who does he use for his bank? I wonder.
I
I
don't
mean,
know. I have no idea where that money sits, but that's an interesting thought. But um, it's a challenge to figure out. He can't figure out things he wants to buy right now,
yeah, he hasn't
and
come
and
across any good deals yet.
yeah, when he's sitting on 350 billion cash, he's not literally got a bank account with 350 billion dollars in it. He's got all kinds of short-term treasury notes, all kinds of other things that are generating interest
Right.
much higher than you would get in banking. But that money's spread in other financial derivatives that are paying much, much more. He's probably still getting like 5% return
Yeah.
on the cash. Okay. So he's
Well,
doing much better with it, but it's different than
yeah.
the typical type of. It's considered to be cash in stock
At
market
least,
terms.
at least it's not ETH in buy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we know it's not that. We know it's not that. Yeah. Um, yeah, I forgot how we ended up getting onto the discussion of cash and all that, but it's interesting to just see where some of these aviation industries are going. But does I was gonna say you're talking about Airbus and Boeing and all that. Well, the thing is, they're tied to the airline industry, right? Well, the airline industry is one of the most competitive industries there is because,
hmm
like, you go shopping for airline tickets. You have all these resources to compare. Well, most people shop on price, right? So you've got all these different places you can go and you can compare the prices on plane tickets, and they're changing. If I lower the price at Delta by $20 on a ticket, then probably the other folks are going to do it too. and because otherwise they're going to stop filling up
they're
economy seats from here to there.
Yeah, they're all part of generally the same reservation system, pricing system.
Right. So what happens is just little things like a disaster horribly impact the aviation industry simply because they're running on such thin margins. Another industry that has really thin margins are grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, Costco claims they don't actually make money on the products they sell. They certainly don't on the $5.99 chickens, but they they make most of their money on the membership fee. That's their chief profit line item, is the actual membership dues, the $100 to $150 a year.
Right.
And it's not actual sales in the store. You're buying stuff for very little above what they paid for it now, but that's true kind of in the whole grocery industry. I think profit margins in the grocery industry are considered to be good if they're over 2%.
Yeah, which is probably
I don't mean like an orange. You buy it for $1, they paid 98 cents for it, but after they factor in their cost of operations, they're lucky if they can make that. And in the airline industry, I think it's more common to make like 0.5%.
Yeah. Well, in the grocery store business, that's why you go into a Target and you have the grocery side, but then you also have the general goods side of the store, the clothing side of the store, and importantly, you have the pharmacy. And I'm wondering if that's one of their more profitable centers. Is that pharmacy?
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. Anything you can do in medicine is not just valuable. It's it's repeatable, it's consistent, it's profitable, and it's not going away. It's recession proof.
Yeah.
So anything in the medical space has a far higher value of increasing the value of the grocery store, or as opposed to the value of the grocery store itself. Doesn't When they're traded, they don't trade. Grocery stores don't trade for high multiples over what they make a year, but pharmacies do.
Yeah.
Okay. Optometry shops do, dental offices do, all kinds of medical offices do. So it's very different in certain spaces, and a lot of that has to do with just how recession proof is. That's what's, when you get into some tech stuff, like how high Tesla trades compared to GM and Ford and companies like that. It's
Crazy.
Interesting to see how much they trade for it, and it's because people invest in it because of technology and not so much into it because it's just a quote car company. I mean, but Tesla is a lot more than that. The robots are kind of a side gig. The self-driving thing is probably going to be something different, with the robo-taxi thing and other things. That's going to be a little different, but a lot of these seem kind of like distractions to a certain degree. But you look at, they sell data to insurance companies, they collect data, they have all of these energy storage facilities. There's a lot of other things that Tesla does that GM, Ford don't do, but GM and Ford have their own other things going on too. So they all kind of have some other little things going on that the others may not have. Anyways, now you sent me a video to watch that was talking about how, somebody else had the same opinion you did, that they should bring back the original founders of Tesla and let them run the company now that Elon is so busy with the government and other projects.
Yeah, that's I've left. If people would like to see that video, if you go to the website and you look over onto the RSS or RS stream, I left that as the top story. I've got plenty other stories to post, but I wanted to keep the visibility that high. If you are a Tesla stock owner, and that's what the video is pointed to, you might want to check that out. I know there are a lot of people that are, like what Elon has done and what he's, moves he's made with respect to the company and with SpaceX and his other enterprises. Um, but then also you might want to kind of temper your view with what the guys in this video, what the guys have to say in this video, because it's, I've, as I mentioned to Dave, I've actually sat down at lunch up on Sand Hill Road at, I forget what's the name of that restaurant. It's a famous restaurant above what's called Sand Hill Road there in the Bay Area, and I've sat down with lunch with both Mark and Martin. This was just after they had been basically booted by Elon out of the out of the leadership of the company at Tesla. So they probably wouldn't remember me from Adam, actually, with all the people I had to deal with. But it was certainly memorable for me.
Yeah,
you don't get
I
to
get
do
it.
that. But that when you really understand what it is that Elon contributed, apart from his money, there wasn't a lot of innovation that he has brought to that company. He is, I think, for want of a better term, he's a good promoter of
Well, he's
himself.
also a hard worker. I mean, he
Oh well,
spent,
yeah.
he lived at the factory for a very long time.
Well, yeah, no, okay, maybe. I
Hmm.
don't know how much of that is true and how much of that is hype. But anyway, the point is that obviously he's not focusing his attention at the moment on where he ought to be focusing attention, because take a look at Europe. Sales of Tesla cars have fallen 45% in Europe. So obviously he is, and there are reasons, not just because of his right-wing politics and, the comments that he's made and the actions he's taken in this country. But there's there's the competition starting to build. Uh, as one article put it, Germans like to buy German cars and Frenchmen like to buy French cars. And finally, you've got native indigenous companies that are producing some product that is, comparable in quality and performance to what Teslas are producing.
I
So,
bet what it really is going on is that he's unknowingly defunded all these NGOs, and they were the employees of those NGOs were buying Teslas.
oh, that's one theory. He's certainly pissing off a lot of people, and his patron is
Mhm.
you see these town halls that are being held. I know I'd be interested to see what happened. We've got one happening just a few miles from me where two of our congressmen, Flood and Bacon, are going to be holding a town hall just over here in Springfield. It's going to be really interesting to see how that returns out. Now, that being said, Don Bacon is one of the first congressmen that I'm aware of who has started to stand up to Trump. This
Mhm.
guy's this guy's a retired Air Force general. Um, very respected, and certainly obviously won his election in a red state, so that doesn't say a lot. But it's nice to see him starting to push back a little on what's going on with respect to the Pentagon, because he's got a lot of experience in that area. So anyway, hey Elon, if you want to play into government, that's your business and the guy that put you there, or the money that put you there, whichever it was. But you've got a company to run, and you're unfortunately, it looks like you're running it at this moment in time. You're running it into the ground.
So Elon owns a lot of companies, and he's the top dog at all of these companies. But
Yeah.
the only one of those that's currently public is Tesla.
Hmm.
And I feel he has an obligation to the public stockholders
Yep.
to put somebody else in charge.
Yep.
Put somebody else in charge. I mean, he's still going to be probably the largest shareholder, but he needs to
do us all the favor. Be the first person on the crew to Mars.
whatever. Yeah, that's going to
I've
be
seen
interesting.
that. I've seen that suggested already.
Yeah, they're going to put a bunch of stage 4 cancer astronauts on there.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. It's interesting thoughts, but you showed me that video, and it's like, well, I think that's kind of obvious. That really seems like what they should do. I mean, at the moment, at least until he stops doing whatever he's doing for the government.
Yeah. Well,
if he were to go back and be focused on Tesla, that'd be a different story.
Yeah. It's, and that gig, the Doge gig is what? It's a limited sort of a government contract, 16 months or something like that, I think. It's like
I have no idea.
Like the middle of 2026
Mm-hmm.
is when their contract expires. Now, I suppose it could be resisted. But so far, other than they've pissed off a lot of people, I don't know if they've actually saved that much money. I'm seeing news reports to the fact that it's been pretty well all talk and not a lot of material gains for the country. So we'll see. Yeah,
we'll see. They're hoping to cut at least $1 trillion out of the federal budget.
Yeah.
So we need it. We need it. We need to have a balanced budget. I mean, we can't just always have all these overruns in the budget. It's been a long time. It's been since the 90s that we last had a balanced budget. So I'm hoping we get it back again.
The last balanced budget was what? Bill Clinton?
Yeah, under Clinton. It was Newt Gingrich was the one who orchestrated it, but but Clinton was president.
Yeah.
And Gingrich was the Speaker of the House at the time. Yeah. And they worked really well together. Gingrich was a Republican. Clinton is a Democrat. And they work really, really well together. And we really haven't seen that. Well, I think when Bush was president, at least for his first term, things were fine. Second term, not so much. And ever since then, it's just been downhill. It hasn't, it's, and I don't know. I really have a hard time believing that all the political theater I see on TV is as real as it gets. I'm sure they're just fine when they're off camera. They're all buddy. I mean, I really just have a hard time believing, I don't know. I think a lot of, they're all lawyers, and lawyers, you know what lawyers do? They all go to drama school. Learn how to be, they go to theater, go to theater classes and learn how to be more dramatic. And it's part of courtroom work. And it carries over into our government. And sometimes it's like, this gets really old. I mean, who doesn't want the government to save money? Who doesn't want to see tax dollars spent better? And at the same time, when we have things like an organization like USAID, where 90% of the budget of USAID went to administration, it doesn't seem like that really is a real good use of putting money into play.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's frustrating to see that. Do we really need 2 million federal workers? I don't know. I mean, it's just interesting to see, but that doesn't do much for electric vehicles. And we're going to talk the next one. This one is just kind of crazy. Trump to cut off 8,000 EV charging ports at federal buildings. Mm-hmm. The General Service Administration under Trump calls them not mission critical. Well, I mean, there's some things. I mean, are bathrooms mission critical? I mean, is having a microwave mission critical? I mean,
coffee maker, is that mission critical?
Yeah. I'm just, people are starting to drive electric cars, and part of the transition to EVs includes being able to charge them at work too. And I don't know how many government electric vehicles are affected by this, but they're talking about
apparently all of
mothballing all of the electric cars that the government has. That doesn't make any sense at all, because they're generally going to have an electric car only in situations where it makes financial sense, I would assume.
Well, they're going to what I read, it sounds like they're going to do a Hertz, right? They're just going to simply got all these Teslas, whatever they bought that is deemed inappropriate for mission, and probably sell them, on an auction. You might actually, government does that all the time. They auction off, surplus parts, desks, tanks, you
Deuce and
know,
a halves.
whatever, and yeah, so I would expect that's probably what they'll do is they'll go to government office somewhere and you probably pick something up fairly inexpensive. So
Yeah,
the
I need a tank
Chargers,
hauler.
the Chargers, what are you going to do with those? You're going to take them out, or you're just going to leave them there and not and put a hood over them and say it's out of our sticker says it's out of operation. I don't think it's going to pay
I
you
think
to
that's what they're
remove
going to
them.
do. I
Yeah,
think that's what they're planning on doing.
just to write on a piece of typing paper, out of action or out of operation, paste it to the or scotch tape it to the thing and let it be.
Yeah, that just seems kind of nuts. It just seems like a big step backwards.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, they're already installed. It's not like it's a big drain on the government somehow. Now, the
yeah.
only thing I will say is we've seen issues with maintaining these. You still have to have people to maintain the chargers. But if I'm under the impression these are mostly level 2 chargers. I'm going to assume
I
they're
would
mostly
suspect,
level
yeah.
2s.
Although the
Yeah.
photograph that they were showing, in one of the stories that I posted, it looks like it's a fast charger, but
Well, I'm looking at one and it shows a picture of an EVgo fast
yeah,
charging
yeah,
station that's in a parking lot that's probably not government. Okay, just an example of a vehicle at a charging
yeah,
station.
yeah.
So I don't think that was probably it, but that really seems like a massive step backwards in the space.
Well, what I'm wondering is here we have one of our National Park Service headquarters is here in
Mhm.
Omaha, down by the river. And as I've said this, explained a few times before, is that wow, this had to be late 90s, maybe
Mhm.
early 20s. They built the building, they had a parking lot, but in the parking lot, they equipped a bunch of the parking slots with outdoor plugs, the 110-volt plug with a little cover over it, like you'd have outside your house. And that was there so that any of the employees within the headquarters, if they drove an electric car, I don't know what you would have driven back then, but if you drove an electric car, you could take and plug your car in to that 110 volt, level 1 outlet. So what happens to those? I don't know. Yeah,
Well,
HBC, you walked into a maelstrom here.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, you know, I somebody saying new period chat radio says I've had some bad experiences with EVgo. Well, what we've talked a lot about on the show is that 20% of people's charger experience is that they can't charge at a public
mhm,
charger that's not Tesla.
yeah.
And I don't know who owns EVgo. I wouldn't be surprised if they're not a publicly traded. But
EVgo isn't that the Volkswagen? I think no, that's
oh, is it?
Electrify. That's Electrify America.
Yeah. But it's I don't know. It's kind of oh yeah, EVgo is part. Oh no, it's not EVgo Holdings. So it's it's mostly owned by Vanguard. Oh, EVgo is it public? Let me see. Let me just do a quick search here. EVgo. Um, no, it doesn't. Oh yeah, it is. It is. EVgo is on the Nasdaq, so it is publicly traded.
Publicly traded. Okay.
Yeah, it has a market cap of about $800 million. It's not super huge. Doesn't have tremendous volume or anything, but it's not bad little stock. I'm not real big on the um, charging station stocks because there's just not enough use on them
No, we don't have
to
enough. We don't have enough cars yet.
yeah, well, there's that too, right? There's kind of a mix, but when it comes to the whole thing with the government thing, I'm just disappointed because if I'm an employee, and so one of the big problems with electric vehicles is people in apartments, okay, having access to charging. Well, you either need to be able to charge at home or charge at work, or you're stuck going to a fast charger somewhere, okay, which is what people always saying it takes too long to charge the vehicles. Well, if you can go and you can charge at work, it makes more sense to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't make
Yeah.
difference.
So, and regardless of how you feel about economics or whether electric cars are saving the planet or whatever, they economically make a lot of sense. Okay, they get rid of air pollution, and who doesn't want to get rid of air pollution and things like that? Air pollution, noise pollution. Although some people prefer a noisy gas car. Okay, if you've got a 600 horsepower car, you expect it to be loud and people to look at you when you're driving down the road. Okay, but whereas the little whirring noise that an electric car makes isn't very much if you've got a 600 horsepower electric car. They've had to make a lot of them make noise so that it would satisfy the buyers. But yeah, but just shutting them off as non-essential seems like a big waste, because there's some things too for quality of life for workers that are necessary. Now, in some cases, those were there simply like for post office vehicles that are electric. So some of them, for different purposes. Yeah, the alien noise. But yeah, it's just disappointing. Bill and I come from different sides of the political spectrum, and I fight against a lot of disinformation, I think, in this space.
That's my left hand. I'm over here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm on the left side of the screen and you're on the right side of the screen.
Right. Well, that balances it out. So
there, I fixed it.
Oh, there we go.
Bill's left and I'm right. Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, but that being said, it just seems like a massive step backwards there to do that, because like I said, you're asking all of the employees to come back to work, no more work from home. And it's like, well, make that so it's not such a huge, inconvenience for some of these people. Anyways, that's enough on the topic of what's going on with that. Let's talk about our last story. General Motors is using AI to overcome a major problem with electric cars. Now, did you go through this?
Just briefly skimmed it.
I mean, it says EV drivers can expect to save $1,500 a year on gas and maintenance. Well, I'm just not sure what part AI has to do with that, because that's kind of normal.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, the AI part of this is that they used AI to determine the most strategic place to put their charger. Remember we talked about GM building this charger network? Where do you put them?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How do you decide where is the most strategic, cost-effective place to put them? And so that's what the story's about. They used AI, whatever algorithm they used. In fact, I just got a note today that one of the which one is it now? Claude has the new Sonnet 3.7 that they've introduced. Right, so we're always seeing this progress in these AIs. So they used one of those to determine where is the best place to put these chargers, and that, I think, that's the thrust of the story, and that's what interests me, how we can use that technology to make it smarter, more cost effective in where we install and build out this electric vehicle infrastructure.
Oh, this is kind of funny. The challenge is increasing the number of EV charging stations in the US by collaborating with EVgo.
Yep.
One of the largest EV charging public networks. GM is planning on building 2,850 DC public charging stalls. So 400 of those stations will be fast charging stalls, so the rest won't. There'll be 400 of those will be fast charging stalls at flagship destinations and major metropolitan areas. 350 kilowatt hour or 350 kilowatt fast chargers, as well as pull-through layouts for optimal maneuvering. Well, that's good. We want the pull-through because GM has pickup trucks and they're going to have trailers. I was just talking to somebody the other day. We were riding in his twin-turbo Ford F-150 somewhere, and he was talking about how much power. He goes, well, it's still not as much power as you'd have if you got a Lightning. He goes, yeah, but I'm constantly towing a trailer. And he's got a roofing business. Okay, so he's a contractor. And I was suggesting to him that he might look at that Ram REV.
Yeah, there's a story I'm going to post today that they're saying that with the 92 kilowatt hour battery pack and the 102 liter, and I don't know what that is in gallons, but 102 liter gasoline tank will give the Ram Charger 1,100 kilometers, which is what, 650 miles, something like that, a range. So he can pull as many trailers as he wants. I don't think.
What are they doing quoting in liters? We fought the British for the right to use our own weights and measures. There's an important SNL skit about weights and measures that people should watch so they can really understand why we wanted to be apart from the British.
Right. Yeah. It all had to do with pounds, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're getting rid. We want our own, amount for tons and all that.
Why is a pound a weight, but it's also a measure of currency?
I don't. Well, I guess at the point it was probably a pound of silver.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
It was a pound of something. Might have been a pound of coal.
The original pound notes or something, at least at some point, didn't they have like a thread of silver running through them? Yeah, I think even we had that, didn't we? Have a thread of silver running through?
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. But now does anybody know the outcome of this whole Fort Knox thing?
I don't know,
is there gold there, or is it in the Caymans somewhere?
Man, that would really be something if it turns out there's some massive thing. But according to the Secretary of the Treasury, it's audited every year. But it does seem odd that they wouldn't let senators go for a tour there. But then again, I look and there's some senators who went and visited it 7 years ago. Oh, but they didn't audit it. They just saw gold.
Yeah. Okay. Are there? Is it gold? Or just painted bricks?
Yeah. You never know, right? That would really be a scandal, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see. So GM is partnered with Pilot Travel, which that's excellent. Does it now? Is Pilot the one that Berkshire owns?
Which one now?
Pilot. It's
Pilot?
The truck stops.
Oh, it might. I don't recall. I do not recall.
Berkshire does own one of the.
Yeah, I think
one of the big ones.
I think it is Pilot, actually.
Yeah, so Pilot Travel and EV Go to add up to 2,000 DC fast charging stalls at 500 Pilot and Flying J travel centers. Also, Pilot also owns Flying J. Okay, so that explains it, because that's what we got over there by the outlet mall. That's a Flying J across the street there. Already more than 130 of these locations are open to the public per GM. Let's see. I go to that Flying J when I carpool. That's our carpool meeting point when I go to Lincoln, when I meet up with people and go there. Let's see. So it just makes this blanket statement: EVs can expect to save $1,500 a year on gas and maintenance. Well, that's one of the big reasons to do that. Oh, you've seen GM chargers at Pilots. Okay. Well, that's interesting, because this doesn't really get into this. So is GM putting some money into EV Go? Is it just a joint venture? The article really doesn't explain, what that ownership relationship is there. But we'll kind of wait and see. But it's good. It's a good deal to see this going.
Yeah, I just looked it up, and Berkshire does own Pilot, 30% of Pilot, and 38, a fraction of Flying J.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's funny because when their annual meeting is coming up shortly, another month or so, and there'll be protesters protesting because Berkshire, is real big in the energy space, and
Yeah.
they own solar and they own coal.
You just drive between here and Des Moines, and you see all those wind turbines, and all those wind turbines are either owned or contracted to a Berkshire Hathaway company. So you can't say that they're not doing their part, although they do have, Warren does have significant investments in the fossil fuel industry as well. So.
Well, he hauls all the oil from Canada on his trains.
Yeah, so hauls oil on his trains. Yeah.
Yeah. So we, one of the more fascinating things I've learned in being in the fundraising space and different things is, okay, so the Arabs are known for owning most of the oil, right? But who owns the boats?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who owns the boats? I used to think it was the Greeks, but it's not the Greeks.
It's okay. It's not the Greeks. It is
Israel. It's Israelis. They're mostly Israeli-owned super tankers hauling all the oil. Yeah, and I've always found that kind of fascinating. It's like, it's like, oh yeah, so people don't get along, really? Yeah, really,
Yeah, but they're what? They're flagged in Cyprus or Libya or.
Oh yeah, they're flagged somewhere else. They're flagged somewhere else, but I'm just, the Ofer family owns so much of that. I remember one time this came to me because I was speaking to a member of the Ofer family, and we were just discussing that. And I'm like, wait, you own all the ships? And he's like, yes. And Arabs own all the oil. It's like, yes. And you guys get along just fine. It's like, nobody cares. Yeah. Nobody cares. Yeah. So
speaking of which, I'm still waiting to hear back from Berkshire. I've requested press passes for us. Mm-hmm. So if we get the opportunity, we'll be at.
We'll go over there.
We'll be at this year's show. So meeting, not a show. It's a meeting.
Yeah. No, that'll be good. That'll be good. Anyways, folks, we appreciate everybody watching in today. We've rambled on enough today.
The maelstrom that we created here.
Yeah, well, we have some good chats about some of the things that are going on. I mean, today was mostly bad news other than the Rivian thing. Usually, but that actually, obviously we've had lots of people watching today. The bad news seems to pull more people in than when when we've got good news to report on. So anyways, yeah, we try to stay on topic. It's not always easy. Anyways,
business, huh?
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. Well, I don't know if you were on for the earlier part about our discussion of Bill's criminal past. So that you may have to rewatch the first few minutes of the episode. Anyways, folks, want to thank you all for watching, and I'll be back with engineer Mike Herzog tomorrow and Bill on Thursday. Otherwise, have a great day.